Leta was completely baffled by the human world as she stared into the mirrors around her that showed the daily events taking place in the realm of man. Her gaze chased from mirror to mirror as she tried to make sense of the flickering images of people from all over the world. She was beginning to suspect that she'd made a horrible mistake by putting herself in stasis while waiting for Dolor to stir. Everything had changed. Everything. There were complicated contraptions, machines that she couldn't even begin to fathom. And the languages had changed so much. She had to focus to understand the rapidly spoken words, which were riddled with colloquialisms and slang that flew past her understanding. Her head ached from the strain of it all. Give yourself time. She turned to find her older brother, Maddox, behind her. For a creature whose emotions had been brutally taken from her, she felt her heart stirring at his approach. It was a muted joy that only reminded her of what real happiness had felt like. But phantom emotions were better than no emotions at all. Tall and lithe like her, Maddox had black, wavy hair and eyes so pale a blue they were almost luminescent. She held her hand out to him. "It's good to see you again, brother." There was the subtlest of softening in his gaze as he took her hand and brought it to his lips. Leta flinched as an unbidden and unexpected image of his being tortured went through her. Even after thousands of years, she could still hear his screams. And her own. As if he knew her thoughts, Maddox gathered her into his arms. He cupped her head in his hand and held her face against his shoulder. Leta gasped as he passed on to her the knowledge of the changed world and how it worked. "You have set yourself a Herculean task, little sister," he breathed against her hair. "You should have stayed with the rest of us and not isolated yourself." "I couldn't." It had been too painful to see them all emotionless when she remembered the way they'd been before Zeus had punished them. The only emotion Zeus had left them with was pain, so that he could control and punish the gods of sleep, and that never-ending pain had eaten a hole inside her. It was a cold world she'd been forced to live in, and that as much as anything else was why she'd been just as content to sleep through eternity. She stepped back from Maddox so that she could meet his gaze. "I have to stop him. He's not the only god of pain. Pain permeates everything in our world and that of man. I know, but he is ultimate suffering. It's not enough to make his victims cry. He destroys them, mind, body, and soul. You weren't there, brother. You didn't see." Still, he flinched, as if he could, in fact, see her memories. "Everyone does what they feel they have to do. I respect you for your choices. Doesn't mean I agree with them." His gaze sharpened before he spoke again. "Dolor will kill you if he gets the chance." She let one side of her mouth curl up into the semblance of a bitter smile. "Good. I relish the fight just as I will relish the feel of his heart in my fist as I crush the life out of him." Maddox inclined his head to her. "Then I leave you with your plans for revenge. Except for one thing." "That is?" His eyes were haunting. "It's not the pain that's inflicted on us by others that destroys us. It's the pain we let inside our hearts that does that. Don't let the human's anger become yours. It can drive you mad if you do." And with those sage words spoken, he vanished. Leta drew a deep breath as she considered what he'd said. She knew he was right. But knowing something and doing it were often two entirely different things. She needed Aidan's anger. She wanted it. Closing her eyes, she focused on the target. Aidan. He was asleep in his bed, dreaming that he was lost in a thundering storm. The rain slashed painfully against his skin as he trudged along. His breathing was ragged, his handsome face contorted by rage. Leta was baffled by his actions. by his will to carry on even as lightning struck the ground, barely missing him. The static from the blasts caused his hair to rise and fan out around his steely features. It was a feral determination that carried him onward. And before she even realized what she'd done, she'd stepped through the portal and entered the dream beside him.